This is the new 28P from Hasselblad paired with the new 907X with the CFV 100C back. It is an incredibly small lens as the camera itself is an incredibly small package, but essentially equates to like a 20 to 22 millimeter-ish equivalent on a full frame sensor. Now, this is not a focal length that I would normally be shooting a lot of. It definitely has a use in my camera bag, but one of my favorite things ever is shooting in the 65 by 24 aspect ratio, which comes from the Hasselblad XPan. So the other night, I put my kids to bed, it was foggy, went out and just decided to use this camera as if it was an XPan and get some very cinematic images. And I think that is one of the places where this thing really, really shines. Now, a quick disclaimer, this video is not paid for or sponsored by Hasselblad. They actually have no idea I'm even making this video, but they did provide this camera and this lens in kind of compensation or whatever for other videos that I've made on the channel. So take that for what you will on this particular video. All right, right off the bat, this lens obviously is incredibly small, as is the 907X here. Beautiful little combination, really, really cool. And especially once you plop this thing into a 65 by 24 aspect ratio, you're getting that super wide field of view. And even cropping down to that, you're getting a significant amount of megapixels when you're cropping in on a 100 megapixel sensor. And while this isn't technically in the new V series, it definitely borrows a lot of the design language from the new V series of lenses. It doesn't have the little push-pull thing for manual focusing here, but it shares a very similar lens hood, a very similar design. You have the little Hasselblad logo for the manual focus ring here. One of the only real downsides is that you don't have an aperture ring at all. But obviously with this camera, you can control it by either pushing this button here and adjusting, I guess, the shutter speed. But this little ring right here adjusts the aperture. So not really that big of a deal. And to be honest, the vast majority of the time, I'm going to be shooting this thing at f4, because even at f4, it is very sharp, and you're going to be getting a lot of things in focus on an ultra wide angle at f4 anyway. Now, the other kind of, I wouldn't say like bonus necessarily, but the other thing to think about with this lens is that for the majority of people, myself included, this wouldn't be the first lens I would buy in this system. It is obviously a great pairing to a lot of things, and especially with the size, it makes a lot of sense. But as this is a lens that is under $2,000 and actually pairs really well with either the 38V, the 55V, or the 90V, it does do a good job of kind of completing that setup. For the last month, I've been using it alongside the 55V, which is like a 40-ish millimeter equivalent, and then this being like a 20-ish millimeter equivalent. It's given me a lot to work with between those two focal lengths. Now, obviously, this definitely pairs with the 4x3 sensor on this thing at about 43 by 33 millimeters. The sensor is obviously very large, much larger than a full frame sensor, which gives it that 0.79 conversion from a 28 millimeter down to a 21, 22-ish millimeter lens. And it definitely covers that full sensor, no problem. So you'll be able to see in these image samples that you're definitely getting plenty of resolution out of all of these things. So let's jump in, see the images, and then I'll give you, I guess, my final thoughts on this. honestly, this lens and this combination obviously has been super, super fun to play around with. This lens in particular, again, isn't the first lens that I would buy from the system unless I was someone that just really loved the ultra wide angle kind of field of view here. It obviously feels a lot like the SWC cameras from the film days of Hasselblad, especially in the size. But I do find that this camera and lens combination is really, really fun. And if you do have other lenses in the system, especially considering this lens is so small and lightweight, and the fact that it isn't that expensive relative to the other lenses in the system, I definitely think it is a good thing to pick up. So if you're interested in more videos about the 907X, you can check those out up here. Check out more of my Hasselblad stuff up here, and I'll see you in one of those videos.